Welcome to WP-Tonic, episode 71. Today we're going to be talking about Genesis framework for beginners. And Jonathan, you're going to lay out what we're talking about this entire month because it's all of Genesis month, and we're having a new element is starting to evolve in our show. It's doing real well, and we're using this network and this system, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So we're going to kind of pig out on Genesis during December, Bill. I know you love it, and you should rightly love it. So this week it's just going to be what is Genesis framework, some of its history, what it isn't, a lot of good stuff, some of the negatives about it. Next week we got Carrie Deals, the Texan. She's been on the show before. She's the kind of queen of Genesis. Does a great podcast, learnt a load about Genesis and other stuff listening to her podcast. She's going to come on and give us a more intermediate to advanced view of resources, anything to do with Genesis. She's the lady to ask, and she seems to laugh at our jokes, Bill, when she was on last time. She seems to deal with the mayhem quite well. And then on the third episode, we're going to talk about Genesis plugins, resources, anything that can help you get your Genesis site up. And then the final, I think it's 5 weeks, but we've also got the Christmas week, but the final is going to be an overall a general look at all the previous 3 episodes and anything I've missed, any questions you might have, any questions we've received. We deal with them probably on that last episode, Bill. How does that sound?
It's amazing. It's good. And I'm looking forward to re-listening to it. I really enjoy our shows when I re-listen.
Yeah.
Now, actually, when we have a host, I'm on the backside just running the questions and notes is a lot of fun too.
Well, it's because folks, Bill helps me with another show, and it's really
helping me with the show.
Yeah, well, you do.
A real estate show.
Yeah,
so both our shows.
Yeah, but it's really helpful. There's so much going on in Blab, and you have a lot of questions. And if you haven't got a co-host, trying to concentrate on your guest, plus look at the questions and plus look what's going on is a bit of a handful, isn't it, Bill?
You know, I love it when we bring someone else on and I can just sort of listen and work the backside because I learn so much from the show.
So what we're going to do is cover this, and then I'll be able to stay on for 20 quick minutes afterwards. And then if Bill wants to keep on going, that's up to him. So let's start, folks. What is Genesis? Genesis is a framework that was started by Studio Press, and it was Brian Gardner who was the original developer designer, and he was the original founder of Studio Press. And then he did a business deal with Brian Clark of Copyblogger, and they became partners. And Studio Press was born, and they developed. Brian Gardner was one of the first people to develop a commercial theme based on WordPress. He was really on the cutting edge. I forgot when that was. It was a few years ago now. And then they started Studio Press, and they became one of the first commercial theme shops for WordPress. And they did very well. It was a great partnership, and it still is. Then they moved things on with Genesis. Now, there are a number of other frameworks. Hybrid is one, Thesis. There's a few about. There's one from Woo Themes called Canvas. And if you look at our back catalogue of episodes, we do a few shows where we looked at all the other kind of themes, didn't we, Bill?
Right. And Jonathan, I'm flipping on Brian Clark's episode 38 with us.
Yes,
the big guy. The big guy's on our show, episode 38.
Brian Clark on, and he's a great guest.
Right there, a very good show.
It was actually, wasn't it? And but the big daddy of frameworks is Genesis. Now, what is Genesis? Fundamentally, it's a parent theme. But it's a parent theme where you can buy 60 child themes in the Studio Press library. You can buy them individually, but they also offer a really super duper package deal. And I think on Black Friday and that, they were offering a substantial discount on the package as well.
I bought the whole package, Jonathan. I spent about.
God, he's been spending.
I spent about $400 Friday.
He's been spending, folks. He's been buying new equipment.
No, I haven't bought that much. Well, I did. I forgot about 2 more new computers.
I reckon you've spent about $3 or $4 grand.
Well, you know why? Is because my wife is starting to actually do pretty well. These people we've done the podcast with are using her for the real estate business. You know, we moved here from California where she had a $100,000 business.
Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, sorry to deviate, folks.
Yeah. So basically, you got a framework, and one of the benefits, folks, is the framework, which is the parent theme, offers a consistent platform. One of the problems with going to various marketplaces like Theme Forest is you get a great choice of themes, and there's great developers on these marketplaces, but the actual quality can differ. And they all, WordPress is a kind of framework in its own right. And people critique that framework, and they've all got individual styles of coding. So each time you buy a theme from a marketplace like Theme Forest, you got to learn a new style that the theme developer utilized. Well, you're not going to have that with Studio Press because all the core functionalities in the framework, and that doesn't change. Also, this isn't totally correct because there are some provisos. But in general, as long as you buy a theme and all the changes and you don't decide to update that child theme, you won't lose any of your changes. The only thing you're going to have to update is Genesis. The proviso to that was that when they brought out Genesis 2, they introduced a lot of HTML5 and CSS3, and that made a lot of their themes truly responsive. If you had one of the, and they updated a lot of their child themes to utilize this new functionality. One of the problems, folks, was that if you had an old theme and you wanted to upgrade, and you did, you would lose all your customization. And that did kind of trick a few people. But on the other hand, they did leave a lot of notes and information. And if you had read that, you would have realized it. Are we going for a break then, Bill?
Yeah, I know it's about time for a break, and we'll get right back to everybody after a break from our sponsors. Hey, just a quick thanks from Share the Oils in Northern Nevada for sponsoring all our shows. They're one of our really solid sponsors in technology and guidance and information, and appreciate Share the Oils. Also, WP-Tonic. What should I talk about today? WP-Tonic, probably one of the best things I can say. Well, best things. A lot of good things about WP-Tonic and your service. You changed the names, Jonathan, so we'll ask you after the commercial what the names are, but we'll put the links in. But I'll tell you what, I'm really impressed with DigitalOcean. So I don't know what Jonathan is charging these days, but if you want to get set up with DigitalOcean, have Jonathan come online and do it with you. He did it with me, and I'll tell you what, it's an amazing site. Netcasting101.com is DigitalOcean. And maybe, Jonathan, why don't you take about 30 seconds and talk about DigitalOcean? I mean, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, DigitalOcean is a virtual private server platform. They don't provide management with the platform, but the prices for the specification that you get are pretty amazing. Solid state drives, Ubuntu, bandwidth, really fantastic data centers. And with WP-Tonic, if you go with one of the higher packages, for additional small cost, we will also include Digital Ocean, and we will manage it for you. So I think that's a really good package, and something I'm probably going to write up about and give more details about. We also do packages with WP Engine. So I think we cover all the bases. We got two of the best kind of setups that we can help people with on the market at the present moment, Bill.
Hey, I do have a quick question about, is it MailRite or WP-Tonic that's on DigitalOcean now?
It's WP-Tonic that's on.
Okay, I just flipped up both of those. There's my site that I just put up last couple of days. It's got a Genesis, a Genesis Dynamic. I built that, and it's one of my skins. It's just done heart really fast. And I've got a link to another site, and then then also we've got WP-Tonic down there. Those are two links. So WP-Tonic is 100% on DigitalOcean. I'm really impressed with it. Now we have to check the cost, and it's really an amazing fast framework. There's nothing else hooked with it. Cloudflare is not hooked into it or anything. By the way, on my Bluehost, I've got Cloudflare hooked into everything, and it does help a lot, and it's not too bad.
I personally feel that you would, to get any kind of similar, you would be looking at $60 to $70 to $80 to $90 easy.
Mm-hmm.
Other people, and you'll be looking at their top end VPS services compared to DigitalOcean. I'm pretty impressed, and they've got a really, it's complicated. It's not for a beginner in any shape or form, but they've got a pretty slick system now, and I wouldn't have moved my own WP-Tonic if I hadn't total confidence in their system, Bill.
Jonathan, next time you set one of those up, I need to watch the whole process, take notes, and make a tutorial how to do it, and work up a little system, because it's pretty impressive. I mean, it's a little challenging to set up, and a lot of tricks, man. You talk about knowing tricks. You must know about 20 tricks to set that thing up.
Yeah. Back to Genesis. Back to beloved Genesis. So it is a framework, and it's a parent theme, WordPress theme called Genesis. Genesis costs around $59. You can then utilize it for multiple sites. It does come, I think it does come with the package. One's basic theme comes with it. I think they call it their sandbox theme.
It's not bad.
And it's perfectly, what you got to understand then, if you're going to not buy the package, you're going to have to buy either from them, or there's a number of third-party theme shops. And that's one of the things we're probably going to be covering with Carrie Deals is, who does she rate as a third-party theme shop? So there's a number of third-party themes that you can buy as well. So you got the 59, which you can utilize on multiple sites, and then you're going to have to buy a child theme on top. This year, they introduced that if you bought one of their themes, you would have to buy a yearly support package. That I presume that's also the scenario if you buy the whole package. To renew support, you have to pay a yearly fee. That's the norm in the industry anyway. Their forums are really good. Their technical documentation, it's pretty good. Some of it is a little bit outdated for coming to the changes they brought in with Genesis 2. But one of the benefits, folks, of utilizing Genesis is there is a ton of third-party tutorials, videos. There's just an enormous amount of information out there on the internet. So if you've got a question, and there's a number of really quality sources, Carrie Deals, WP Bob, the WordPress Chick. There's just a load of quality resources if you're looking to find more about Genesis. On to some of the slight drawbacks. If you're not going to utilize something like Dynamic, and you're a kind of lower intermediate developer, and you developed on the normal WordPress platform, and then you go to Genesis, you're going to be pretty lost initially, because the framework doesn't utilize the traditional template structure of WordPress. It basically uses a preset of files, and it uses hooks and filters to bring in these Genesis functions into the templates. And you got to start learning your hooks and filters the kind of Genesis way. And it's not jet science, it's just you need to repetitively learn it. Having a good development setup helps. If you've got something that you can do some short keys and it brings in certain functions, that helps. And like Coda 2, and there's a couple of other development platforms where you can add on bundles that have all the kind of hooks and filters that Genesis use. And if you learn the shortcuts with your development platform, that can really accelerate your development cycle. But there is a learning curve. A lot of people, though, they do changes, and there's a number of plugins that can help you with any minor changes. And then also you've got the Beaver Builder, Composer. Composer isn't exactly like Beaver Builder. It's more about what Composer is it helps you visually alter the loop structure of your homepage and some of your key blogging pages without actually having to know programming. And the loop structure is one of the key coding functions at the heart of WordPress. And Composer gives you a load of choices without actually having to know the coding. And they do an additional plugin that works really well with Genesis. Beaver Builder also works really well with the Genesis framework, and that's become really popular. And I think these type of tools we're going to cover in more detail, but they offer opportunities now for the kind of semi-non-coder to really do some nice work. Then you got Dynamic and their skin structure. They're very reputable. So one of the other factors that people criticize Genesis about is that a lot of Genesis sites can look very similar.
I can identify a Genesis. A lot of podcasters use Genesis. A lot of podcasters. I'd say like 80%.
There's a few factors around this. It's true in a way, and also unfair in a way. You got, like most things, it's not black and white. It's grey. When it comes to the Genesis child themes, I must apologise. I have met the gentleman, but I've totally forgot his name. They're the lead designer for Studio Press and Copy Blogger. He took over the role from Brian
Clark. Yeah.
No, not Brian Clark. The other Brian. Oh God. His name's. I'm not doing
Studio
well.
Press. I'm trying to think from Studio Press.
Gardner, Brian Gardner.
Brian Gardner. Okay.
Brian Gardner was the chief developer and designer for a while. Now he actually isn't involved with Studio Press. He's moved on to another side of Copy Blogger. But he was the designer, and then they got another designer, and he's designed most of the child themes. And he has his own style, folks. He has a particular taste, and you see that in the themes. And you get that with any kind of theme shop that's got 1 to 2 designers. They have their own style. When it comes with podcasting, there's a few people that specialize in making podcasting websites. And a lot of them use Studio Press, so that's why they tend to look the same. It comes with the territory, folks. But there's also like Rebecca Gills from Web Savvy Design. Her and her developer team have a number of themes, and they look very different, I feel, and they're very well coded. And there's other third-party WordPress, Genesis theme shops, so you don't have to have what the thing that we've just discussed. They all look the same. So got any questions, Bill? How long have we been?
No, Jonathan, when we wrap it up for today, but I want to talk real fast. I was trying to find it. I couldn't find it. When I first got into Genesis a couple of years ago, Mike Fitzpatrick, who is a very, very successful plugin developer with his firm here in Reno, does a lot of the car shops, car companies, big, large, everywhere on the West Coast. 10,000 cars they put up. They use Genesis and they lock it down for their clients, and they use their plugin. Everything works well. He's got 5 developers. So I got hit. Because of him, his influence, he said, go with this. And he's more of a business guy than he is a developer, of course. Jonathan, you're more on the development side, even though you're business now too.
I've kind of not done it for a little bit. I need to get back into it, really.
But it used to be more in the development for years and years, but you still have all that knowledge. Yeah. But that said, he talked about the process, and Genesis has picked this up, WordPress Studios. You talk with the framework, the engine. The engine's that framework. Then you talk about the child theme on top of it being the frame of the car, and the skin is how you color the car. It's a really good analogy of how Genesis can be so fast as you can create things. And then as a developer, you can, as a small developer operation, you can go ahead and market that to your clients and just change the colors and have all these different child themes or even skins for them and help them create a site very fast and a very effective site.
Yeah, I think just to kind of recap and just go over, I think the big benefit is consistent coding amongst all the child themes. Even if you go to third party, I'm sure there's some really rubbishly coded Genesis third party themes out there. I'm sure there are. But you normally get a lot more consistency because they are going to use the Genesis framework. And you've got to be a real botcher to do something that's really crappy if you're basing it on Genesis, in my experience. So consistency. A lot of people say where some of the confusion comes in, Bill, is that there's a couple of popular, not WordPress kind of framework. Well, where the confusion comes in, Bill, is there's a couple CSS frameworks. One is called Bootstrap, that was developed by some developers who were working for Twitter, right? And they wanted a consistent framework so they could develop applications, web-based applications, and they developed this framework called Bootstrap. And then there's another framework called Foundation, and I think that comes from a company called Zen. Not totally sure about that. But these are 2 really popular CSS frameworks. And where the confusion comes in, Bill, is that there's some WordPress developers that brought in the CSS framework, and then they built a parent theme on top of these frameworks, and then you can build child themes off this parent theme. And that causes a fair bit of confusion because WordPress is Genesis is similar in some ways, but it came from a different direction. It came from the WordPress, and then they bolted on the CSS5 and CSS3, so you get a real responsive. One of the great strengths about Genesis is that you can move things around, but it's still going to be really responsive, and it's going to look the same in multiple browser types. If you get something else and you knock it around a lot, you then really should have to do a lot of testing, and most people don't do the testing again because that's laborious, Bill. There are tools and other methodologies that cut it down, but that's one of the strengths of Genesis, really, consistency. And you know that even if you move things around, it's still, if it is based on Genesis 2, the child theme, that it's still going to be totally responsive in the different browsers that you're using, Bill.
Right. You know, I'm still trying to I lost one of my old downloads of Genesis, and I wish I still had it because it had some stuff in there where I could tweak it and then update it, and it did some things I can't do now. Just a couple of changes they've made. Hey, we got to finish up the show. It was a great show, Jonathan. What I'll do is I'm going to listen to the show this weekend, tear it apart, and look at it like the business guy, or the guy who's just making his business run using the Genesis framework, and go back and ask some specific questions. Now, is Carrie on next week? Who's on next week?
Carrie.
Same time. So
yeah,
she's
going to be joining us.
That'll be good. And Carrie was on with Brian too on that one show. I put the YouTube on that.
Yeah, she was. So it's time that she came on for the full blast of our madness, Bill.
And I'll be up for a little bit before I run off to get a haircut. Hey, I just dropped on one of my test sites, which is ublabcast.com. That's kind of a fun site. And all that is so I don't slow down my sites. That automatically feeds.
I don't have to clear off for the next 15, 20 minutes. So we're going to be here and talking a bit more, folks. But
to the iTunes, though. We got to shut down the iTunes today.
Yeah, see you later, folks.
Next week on iTunes. Bye. Well, without further ado, we're going to finish up on this episode of WP-Tonic, which is episode 71. I want to thank all the people who came on Blab Live. Jonathan is heading up to the lake. We had a really good time, good information with the Genesis, and see you next week.